What is going on, everybody? What is happening? And welcome back to Unstoppable, the Elite Mind and Body podcast for men. I'm your host, Taj Howell. Welcome back to the show. Cannot wait to share this episode with you guys. It's extremely important. This episode, in and of itself, is one of the most important episodes that I think I could possibly share. And the reason why is because it actually stems from my story. And if you guys know anything about my story is, about my relationship history. I was married for 10 years and I had two kids with my ex wife. And many of you guys relate to me because of, going through divorce. I'm the type of person who I know what it's like to go through that. This episode, we're discussing the edge that you lost in your marriage and why your partner needs you to find it back. Okay, now I don't want you to turn this episode off if you're not married. I also don't want you to turn this episode off if you are single or not in a relationship. I don't want you to turn this episode off at all because the edge that I'm about to talk to you about it does not necessarily only relate to a person's marriage. It relates to everything, an edge in fucking life. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to share with you really quick. Okay. I want you to understand something. Most men lose their edge in life um, for a number of different reasons, right? As you go through life and as you age, if you start to let your fitness go and you start to get softer, what I typically tend to see happen is as a person gets softer and as a person gets fatter and as a person gets weaker and as a person gets kind of less hard when it comes to their fitness, a few things start to change in their mind, right? You start to become a bit more of a softer person mentally as well. And as that starts to happen in a relationship, right? You start to act smaller, you start to act safer, you start to become more apologetic, you start to be a person less worthy of respect, right? From your partner. Now, in thinking about it this way, right? In a relationship, especially like a marriage, over time, what starts to happen, because there's always fights, there's always bickering, there's always things that come up. If you don't necessarily hold your ground and are unapologetically yourself, you become smaller in that relationship, right? You play safer and you're more apologetic. And you're ultimately a person who kind of gets walked on. And this happened to me. This actually happened to me when I was in my marriage. Now, um, a few things kind of made me this way, right? And I'm going to be a little bit open and vulnerable with you guys right now because I think it's going to help you guys relate. It's going to help relate to some of you in the things that you might be going through in your own life. Okay. When I was in my marriage, right, I felt like I could never truly be myself because I was afraid of losing this person. I was also afraid of what other people would think of me if I spoke a certain way. I was afraid of like learning how to fight. It was always something that I wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to learn how to fight. I was too afraid to do it. I always wanted to ride a motorcycle, right? I fucking I was too afraid to do that on fear of judgment from what my partner thought. And every time I compromised on the things that I knew I wanted to do deep down, but didn't do because I was either afraid of loss or afraid of judgment or afraid of something, it chipped away at the man that I knew I was. And I thought while I was doing those things, I was making all these compromises and doing what I should do to be the best man possible. I wasn't protecting my relationship. I was slowly destroying my own identity and my own relationship with myself. And this is because if you truly know who you are and you truly stand for something, right? The less that you live in accordance with who you know you are, the less you trust you're going to have for yourself and the less other people are going to respect you. And that plays out in relationship. Okay. Now, What an edge actually means, let me actually go this way. What an edge actually costs you if you lose it. Okay, when you lose your edge, what happens is in a relationship, your partner doesn't want to push over, right? Your partner wants to feel safe with a person who truly knows who he is. And when you hear a lot of times in relationships and in marriages, long-term relationships, about the sex life dying, right? And if this is happening to you right now, I want you to like pay the fuck attention to what I'm about to say, because this is going to save you months of figuring out what to do. But if your relationship is starting to go that route of, there's less and less sex, even though you want more of it, there's less of it. It's because women lose attraction when a man shrinks himself to avoid conflict, number one. Women also lose attraction when a man doesn't know who the fuck he is. That's a huge one. Like if you're having an identity crisis, one of the easiest ways to make a woman not attracted to you. Women are also not attracted if you are too nice. And I don't mean being kind and caring and buying flowers and actually being there for your woman. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, and I mean partners too, this is for my gay community as well, it's the same thing. Your partner doesn't want you to be too nice. Your partner wants you to have a fucking backbone. She wants you to, or your partner, I'll just say your partner for the rest of this conversation. Your partner wants you to be the type of person who has an opinion, the type of person who shows up integrally as his true masculine self. Your partner wants you to be the person who you know you are and to be unapologetically yourself, right? When you start to shrink to evade conflict, or when you start to become a pushover and you just let your partner do whatever they want, or when you start losing your fitness level and you start getting lazier and stuff like that, and you're showing up as like a lesser version of what you were at the beginning of the relationship, attraction starts to fade. So you losing your edge is costing you attraction in your relationship. Okay. What a partner truly wants is a man who does what he wants, is still respectful of the partner, obviously, but does what he wants, stands for what he believes in, and doesn't fucking flinch when conflict arises, whether it's with the partner or with an outside fucking person or place or thing. Okay. You getting softer and losing your edge is not protecting your partner. It is boring your partner. And it's making them wonder if you actually are the partner that you said you were going to be from the beginning. Okay. Now, I want to quickly talk a little bit about how divorce forged me as a man. Okay. As I told you before, I was the type of person when I was married that I talked a really big game. And I was the type of person where I had all these goals and I usually hit my goals. So I was very productive and I was very focused on setting goals and hitting them. And I did a really good job. I built a life in an island. I bought a house, like made six figures. Like I was doing like decent by anybody's standpoint and by anybody's perspective. But what was missing was over time, 10 years, when I first met my ex-wife, I was just me, yo. I didn't give a fuck. I would swear I wanted to be a rapper back then. I fucking drank, didn't give a shit about it. I smoked weed, didn't care. And I'm not promoting drugs, but I'm telling you that like I was the type of person where like back then I just knew who I was and I didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a rapper and I wanted to drink and I wanted to smoke weed and I wanted to do whatever. And like that was ironically when the relationship was the best. As I started to not just become a better person and cut out substances and cut out things like that, right? But as I started to try to change who I was, to acquire almost validation from my ex-partner. As I started to try to change myself to fit into a box, you can almost map out the timeline perfectly of the deterioration of the marriage and the deterioration of the relationship. Because I started trying to change myself instead of just being who I knew I was. Okay? Going from the kid who I was 18 when we met, going from the kid who just did whatever the hell I wanted, smoked weed all the time, drank alcohol all the time, skipped class in university, didn't have a care in the world. I was even getting arrested. I didn't really give a shit about anything. It wasn't good. I'm not trying to outline this as something that is a good thing. I'm outlining this to make a point. I was unapologetically myself, and I didn't give a shit about what anybody thought. As I started to change who I was, and start swearing less, even though I've always been a person who's just fucking sweared, just how I am, or when I would try to make myself less aggressive, you know what I mean, not in the relationship, but just aggressive, like in general. Like, I've always wanted to learn how to box. It's always been something I've been interested in, but I thought aggression would maybe scare like my person, or whatever the case is. Or as I would start to change my the things that I wanted, and I would make them less of the things I truly wanted and things that I thought that maybe my partner would want. As that started to shift, the relationship just started to deteriorate. Okay. And that is in direct alignment with me losing my edge, because at one point you have a person who's definitely not where they're supposed to be in life, right? Drinking and smoking and doing all the things that I was doing at the beginning of the relationship, but I was unapologetically myself. I knew who I was, and I didn't give a shit. I was unfiltered. I was fully me, right? Fast forward to going through the relationship, started shrinking my opinions and stuff like that. And even when I used to post on social media, I would never swear. I would always try to be like proper. I would wear a dress shirt and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I was putting on kind of like a front. I wasn't actually being myself. And all of this just started that was my edge leaving. And as my edge left, so too did the fucking romance, and so too did the passion and energy that I had in my marriage. It just fucking went right with it, because I wasn't being an integral version of myself, even if it was a good version or a bad version. Now, I don't want to confuse you. This does not mean for you to be a piece of shit. This does not mean for you to be someone worse than what you are. What it means is, for you in this moment, you need to be yourself truly. You need to fully understand what your identity is, and you need to regain your edge when it comes to your physical fitness, when it comes to your ability to fight. For me, and I'll explain what happened after my divorce in a minute, but for me, I've always wanted to learn how to fight. I've always wanted to ride a motorcycle. I've always wanted to, just not give a fuck and say what I wanted on social media. I do that now. I've always wanted to be the man that I am now, which is why the relationship that I'm in now looks a whole hell of a lot different than it did when I was in a relationship and I didn't have my edge. You guys got to remember something. We are men. We lead the relationship. Everything that you do, all the energy that you put out into your relationship, and we're talking relationships right now, but it's the same thing for anything, for your business, for your clients that you work with, for your coworkers, your peers, whatever. The way you show up and the energy you put out creates a mirror effect that reflects back at you what you are. That's what the life of the man is. So basically, what we want to do is we want to focus. And this is for all of you guys in a relationship. If you've been through a deterioration of a relationship, you probably understand what I'm talking about. If you're currently in a relationship right now and you want it to be better, I want you to really try to understand what I'm talking about. And if you're in a great relationship right now, I want you to think about why it's so great. It's probably because you finally have stepped into your power and you know yourself, right? I want to explain to you right now what it looks like to truly have an edge. Okay, what it means is, and I'm gonna give you this list, and I want you guys to fucking understand kind of how this all works. Okay, but before I do that, actually, what I want to do is I want to give you guys kind of a run through on what shifted for me in my divorce, like after my divorce, right? Like how I actually changed as a person, because I think it's going to give you a better understanding of like why this is so important. Okay, but essentially, when I went through my divorce, I went from being afraid of being truly myself to just having no restraints and just completely going all in on just being whoever the fuck I wanted. what I started, there's a few things I started immediately, right when I got divorced. I started boxing 3 days a week. I've always wanted to learn how to fight. I've always wanted to learn how to take a motherfucker's head off. I've boxed 3 days a week for the last 3 years straight. I'm at a point, like today, I boxed 13 rounds. So like, I'm training hard for that. Another thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to truly integrate my personality into social media. Now, if you go back in the timeline, if you go back in the history books, in 2023, when I got divorced, early 2023, I only had 30,000 Instagram followers. Now I have over 300,000 Instagram followers. And the first shot from 30,000 to like 150,000 happened in 6 months of me just integrally being myself. Okay. I wanted to learn to fight. I wanted to be myself on social media. Both of those things led me to have more of an edge. It led me to be a better version of myself. Another thing is I wanted to, in that time, I wanted to like actually have a relationship that I led. And so I poured into my own energy and poured into myself, poured into like learning about masculine and feminine energies, learning about different reasons why relationships would break down, learning about how you can actually be a man and lead a relationship better. These are all things that I got obsessed with learning. As I continue learning these things, right? As I continue learning these things, I honestly got to a point where I stopped caring what people think. And I used to be the type of person who cared a lot about what people think. I live in a really small town. And, when I went through the divorce, it was really painful because a lot of the people that I thought were my friends in the town weren't my friends afterwards for whatever reason. And so I always thought I had this chip on my shoulder, when I was first going through that divorce. Now I couldn't give a single solitary shit what anybody thinks. I know who I am. I know that I'm the best version of myself. I know I'm working towards specific goals and specific targets. And if people have a thing or two to fucking say or think, I don't give a shit. That in and of itself is the type of edge that will help you in your relationship, right? Will make your relationship better. Okay. Now, the juxtaposition really quickly so that you understand, okay, the framework of what a man with an edge is. Number one, a man that has an edge that's attractive in relationship is a man who knows who he is. His identity is locked in. Okay. Second thing is that you're a man that knows what you want and you actually go after it without apology. Okay. You know what you want, and you go after it, and you fucking take it. Number three is to show up physically, meaning that your body is actually locked in because your body is the first sign of self-respect. How do you expect other people to fucking respect you if you don't respect yourself, right? That's the third one. The fourth one is to not shy away from discomfort, okay? When you're a man with an edge, you actively seek discomfort because there's no growth in the comfort zone. We want to be uncomfortable. The man that have edges, the man that like women look at, or even your partners, if you guys are gay, whatever, your partners look at and are attracted to, are partners that actively are looking to get better and grow and evolve. No growth happens in your comfort zone. The guys that get uncomfortable are the guys that are the most attractive to other people. The fifth one is a man that has an edge does not change himself to keep a woman. He becomes more himself, and the right woman rises to meet him at the level that he's at, or the right person rises to meet him at the level that he's at. Okay? Having an edge means that you don't change yourself. Okay? Like, obviously, you can improve yourself, but I mean, changing who you are fundamentally makes you lose your edge. The sixth one, okay, is about being disciplined, right? A man that has an edge is actually a disciplined man, a man who shows up and does the things he says he's going to do. There's nothing more unattractive when a person can't keep their promises, right? So what I want you to do now, hopefully this resonated with you guys. Okay, I wanted to film this episode because I think it's extremely important to help understand relationship dynamics. I have gotten off the phone today with like three separate guys that wanted to join my program. Two of them actually joined the program that are currently going through divorce. Divorce is one of those things, and breakups are one of those things that can massively impact a person, either positively or negatively. And a lot of times divorce can be avoided. Breakups can be avoided. All these problems can be avoided if you are truly a man that has an edge, that doesn't get quieter, that doesn't get lazier in relationship, that doesn't start changing himself to avoid be yourself, be the best version of yourself, and always look to get better, but never change who you fundamentally are. Okay. Now, what I want you to do, and this is for the men in my community, in my brotherhood, but you guys also, any of you guys that are watching just the podcast in and of itself here live with me right now, whatever, you guys are welcome to take this exercise as well and run with it. The exercise is to ask yourself two questions. Based on everything that I just described. Question one is, do I have an edge? And I want you to answer that honestly. Do I have an edge? And if I do have an edge, what is it? Right? Am I unapologetically myself? Am I in incredible shape? Can I take a motherfucker's head off if I want to with a kick or a punch? Like, do I know what I want and I go after it 100%? Do I have an edge? That's the first question. And I want you to answer that about yourself, honestly. Question two, and answer this one honestly as well. If you're in a relationship, you're going to ask this question. Does my partner actually see me as a man with an edge or as a pushover? You're going to ask yourself that question. If you are single, clearly that means your past relationship didn't work. I want you to ask yourself the question, did my ex-partner actually see me as a man with an edge or a pushover? And you're going to get two very real answers. And I want you to, if you need to, rewatch this episode and understand what the characteristics are of a man that has an edge, and understand that in order for you to truly create successful relationship, you need to lead the relationship better. And you need to be a man with an edge. You need to know who the fuck you are. You need to show up every single day. You need to be a man of your word. You need to be stoic and stable. And you need to ensure that you're showing up physically. I would also highly recommend knowing how to take a motherfucker's head off if you need to. Like learning how to fight. Learning how to truly be the best version of yourself in every single regard. Do you have an edge or not? For the men in my brotherhood, I want you to post in the community the answers to those two questions. I want you to post in the brotherhood chat the answer to those two questions. And I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say. For the rest of you guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do want to learn about becoming a client inside of my brotherhood, we have 200 men right now that are focused on becoming the best version of themselves, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, relationships, everything. If you want to learn about becoming a client, if you comment win on this post right now, I'll reach out to you, see how I can help. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. It's been a fucking amazing podcast so far. I've swore quite a few times. So hopefully you guys are cool with that. But at the end of the day, remember, like I gotta say, I don't give a fuck. You know why? Because I'm unapologetically myself. I know who I am. I show up every single day. That's what gives me an edge. Okay. Comment win. Like I said, if you want me to see if I can help, send you a couple messages. We'll go from there. Have an amazing rest of your guys' week, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace out.